guys, so our first question here that we're going to be solving is a linear quadratic system. And our first equation is 3y plus x squared minus 4x minus 17 equals 0. Our second equation is 3y minus 10x plus 38 equals 0. So our goal is to start solving for a variable. And what I noticed first is that if you look, these three y's match. Now they're both positive, and you need one to be a different sign in order to cancel. So we're going to subtract this bottom row. And we're going to subtract everything. So 3y minus 3y will cancel. X squared minus, there is no x squared, so it would stay x squared. Negative 4x minus a minus is plus, so negative 4x plus 10x is 6x. Negative 17 minus 38 is negative 55. And then 0 minus 0 will stay 0. Then we can just factor this and solve for x. So with 55, you either have 1 times 55 or 5 times 11. And we know that 5 and 11 is the pair that we need. We need a positive 6, so we want 11 minus 5. So x plus 11, x minus 5 equals 0. And then check your work. 11 minus 5 will give you 6. 11 times negative 5 will give you negative 55. And we're going to solve each of these. So x plus 11 equals 0, and x minus 5 equals 0. We'll subtract 11. 0 minus 11 is negative 11. And we will add 5. 0 plus 5 is 5. Our next job is to solve for the y. So we're going to take the negative 11 and the 5 and plug them back into one of the equations. And I think that the bottom one is easier, so that's the one I'm going to choose. So I'm just going to rewrite that equation. 3y minus 10 in place of x, we'll fill in negative 11 first, plus 38 equals 0. So we have 3y, negative times a negative is positive, so plus 110 plus 38 equals 0. Add those together. 3y plus 148 equals 0. Subtract 148. 3y equals negative 148. Divide by 3. Y equals negative 148 divided by 3, and that's going to be a decimal, negative 49.3 repeating. So our first answer is the ordered pair, negative 11, negative 49.3 repeating. For our second answer, we're going to do the exact same step but plugging in 5. So we have 3y minus 10 times 5 plus 38 equals 0. Again, plugging in 5 for x. So negative 10 times 5 is negative 50 plus 38 equals 0. Combine like terms, that will be negative 12. 3y minus 12 equals 0. Add 12, and you get 3y equals positive 12. Divide by 3, and y equals 4. So our second answer is 5, 4. For our second example, we have 3 times y minus 4 minus 2 times x minus 3 equals negative 6, and 5x squared plus 2y squared minus 53 equals 0. What's different is this time we're not lucky enough to have something to cancel, so we're going to have to distribute, solve for a variable. I'm going to solve for y, and then we'll take that and plug it into this y squared, and that will help us eliminate a variable. So the first step is to distribute and solve that top row. So 3 times y is 3y. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Distribute the negative 2 minus 2x plus 6 equals -6. Now the job is to get y by itself. So we're going to add 2x to the other side, and that will cancel. We're going to subtract 6, and we're going to add 12. And this would be moving everything to the other side except for that 3y. So we're left with 3y equals, we have our 2x, -6 and -6 is -12, plus 12 is actually 0. So this would 0 out. So 3y equals 2x. Divide by 3, y equals 2/3 x. And you can leave it like this if you'd like. So now we're going to take this y equals 2/3 x, and we're going to plug it into the other equation. So right here where this y is, you take this 2/3 x, and you plug it in. So we have 5x squared plus 2 times, instead of y, we have 2/3 x squared minus 53 equals 0. So I'm going to square it first because I need to square this whole thing. So 5x squared plus 2 times, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9. So that'll be 4/9x squared minus 53 equals 0. Now I'll multiply. 2 times 4 is 8. So 5x squared plus 8/9x squared minus 53 equals 0. I'm going to add these together. Remember, you can do this in your calculator. So you could do 5 plus, math right up, get your fraction, 8/9. So 5 plus 8/9, and that gives you 53/9. Sorry about that. So we have 53/9x squared minus 53 equals 0. We're going to add that 53 over. And now we'll have 0 plus 53, which is just 53. So 53/9x squared equals 53. Now remember, to get rid of this fraction, we can multiply by the reciprocal. So 9/53, and that would cancel. We just have x squared. You do it to one side, you do it to the other. And look, what's nice here is these 53s will also cancel. So x squared equals 9. Take the square root. With a square root, you always get a positive and a negative. So we have plus or minus 3. So now, like before, we're going to plug in that plus and minus 3. So again, it's your choice which equation is easier. I actually probably will just use this one right here, the y equals 2/3 x, but you could use any of the equations. So I'm going to choose this one and have y equals 2/3 times positive 3. The 3's will cancel. Y equals 2. So my first ordered pair is positive 3, positive 2. Do that same step, y equals 2/3 times x, this time using the negative 3. Again, the 3 will cancel, the negative doesn't, so y equals negative 2. So my second ordered pair is negative 3, negative 2. For our second example today, we have quadratic system. And the difference here is that means they're going to both have x squared every time, so, or y squared, because a quadratic means there's going to be a square. But we'll work them the same way. Again, we get lucky and we see that we have a match. If they match, let's go ahead and cancel. So to make them cancel, we've got to subtract. X squared minus x squared will go away. Y squared minus, there is no y squared, so it's just y squared. 0y minus 3y would be negative 3y. Again, 0y meaning there is not one. And then 8 minus 10 is negative 2. Now, this is a quadratic, so we have to add this 2 back to the other side if we want to try and factor. So we have y squared minus 3y plus 2 equals 0. To get 2, there's only one option, which is 1 times 2. So that's the pair we're going to use. We need a negative, so we want both of them to be negative. Check your work. Negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. Negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2. So that equals 0. We're going to split it and solve each side. Y minus 1 equals 0, and y minus 2 equals 0. We add the 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. And on this side, we add the 2. 0 plus 2 is 2. So that's our first answers. So now we're going to do the same thing we did before where we plug in those y values. Again, you get to choose which one looks easier. I'm probably going to choose this bottom one because I know it has just a plain y, so I'm not going to have to square it. So let's plug in 1 first. So we have x squared plus 3 instead of y. We plug it in and put 1 equals 10. 3 times 1 is 3. We're going to subtract 3 from both sides. So we have x squared equals 7. Take the square root, and that would give you a positive or negative square root of 7. So that means we have to combine all the possible answers. We could have a positive square root of 7 with that 1, or a negative square root of 7 with the 1. So we actually have 2 answers already just from plugging in the 1. We'll do the same step plugging in 2 for y. So x squared plus 3 times 2 equals 10. 3 times 2 is 6. We'll subtract 6 this time. 10 minus 6 is 4. Take the square root. We know again we're going to have a plus or a minus, and the square root of 4 is 2. So again, 2 more answers, being positive 2, 2, and negative 2, 2. So you have 4 answers on a quadratic. For our next example, we have 3x squared plus 4y squared equals 48, and 2x squared minus y squared equals negative 1. Now, what we can do here is we can cancel the y squareds. I like that there's a positive and a negative, but we need these numbers to match. So I'm going to multiply this bottom row by 4, because then I would have a negative 4y squared. So I'm just going to rewrite this. 3x squared plus 4y squared equals 48 over to the side, and then multiply by 4. 4 times 2 is 8x squared. 4 times negative y squared is negative 4y squared. And then 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. Now the y's match. They will cancel. They're opposite signs, so we don't need to subtract. So we have 3 plus 8 is 11x squared equals 48 minus 4 is 44. Divide out 11. X squared equals 4. Take the square root, and we get that x is a positive or negative 2. So now we will plug in that positive 2 and the negative 2 into one of the equations. You can choose either one. Let's do the top, because that way my y is already positive. So I have 3, and instead of x squared, I'm going to do that positive 2. So 3 times 2 squared plus 4, y squared equals 48. 2 squared is 4. And then 4 times 3 is 12. So 12 plus 4y squared equals 48. Subtract that 12. 48 minus 12 is 36. So 4y squared equals 36. Divide out 4, and you have y squared equals 9. Take the square root, and you get a plus or a minus 3. So that means for our positive 2, we have a positive 3. So we have the ordered pair 2, 3. And also for our positive 2, we have a negative 3 for y. So 2 and negative 3. Same idea, plugging in a negative 2 this time. So we have 3 times negative 2 squared plus 4y squared equals 48. Negative 2 squared is still 4. 4 times 3 is 12. So you're going to see that this one works out the exact same as the last one, so I'm going to go a little bit quicker through this part. So we get to that same y squared equals 9, take the square root, and get plus or minus 3 also. So for our negative 2, we have negative 2, positive 3, and negative 2, negative 3. Again, 4 answers, quadratic.